Last time on the WizardCast.
All right, this is it, Brian. This is the last episode before number 100. Do you have that disaster plan ready? And I hope it's a short one.
I do!
Wait, you do?
Yeah.
Is it short?
It's the most simple plan ever.
Okay. All right, well, I hope it doesn't involve a pop punk band. Where is it?
Oh, right here. There you go.
It's one sheet, but there's nothing on it.
No, look at the top. There's that one sentence right there.
Cancel the WizardCast after episode 99.
Uh-huh. Now we don't have to worry about episode 100. Disaster averted.
You want this to be the last episode of the WizardCast, Brian? That's it? No other warning? How are we going to tell all the staff? What about the interns? Our pending IPO? The impact on the economy? Our listeners? Our listeners are going to want more content from us.
Which is why I'm proud to announce a new podcast about Salesforce. This time without a nonsensical pun of the name that's pretty much just about my personal brand. This time, it will be better for SEO.
No, not like this. Not like this. I don't like the scorched earth approach, Brian. What are you wanting to name it anyway?
The Lightning Einstein Trailhead Admin Podcast, or LETA for short.
Okay, we can't do that because those are all trademarked by Salesforce, so we can't use them.
I'm going to build a better podcast with blackjack and cookies. In fact, forget the podcast.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the WizardCast. Why do seals swim in salt water?
Why, Brian?
Because pepper water makes them sneeze.
Well, that would make sense, actually.
Yes.
Speaking of sneezing, my voice today, if you couldn't already tell, I have a cold.
A little gravelly.
Yeah, just a little.
That's what gets from drinking 20 Pepsis a day, Mark.
If only I could. Still, if only I could.
Normally we go on and do some funny stuff, but this episode is
funny.
Huge.
Huge.
I'm not sure this episode is funny.
Yeah.
But
it's huge.
Winter is coming to overuse the terrible meme from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And
their fantasy show.
Their fantasy show, which I've only seen 3 episodes of, but I've read all the books, so don't go there. And the release is coming. And as you know, Mark, the release notes are huge.
Yeah.
Simply gigantic.
Like they always are.
Oh, yeah.
They don't get smaller.
Oh, no. They never. Oh, well, they can. I mean, if you open up the PDF, it's 546 pages.
Yeah, but that's my point,
right? Is
it's more pages every time.
But if you print it, it's only 542.
Well, technically, I guess that means it is.
And then if you print back and, on the front side and the back side, it's
all
half
right. Okay.
that.
Okay. That's enough.
Anyways, there's a lot of release notes, and we usually make the joke that we're going to read them, but I'm saving reading the release notes for Jennifer Bowen because she's asking so nicely. Jennifer, you heard it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the highlights that we found as we went through, and you would think this would be a small list, but it's not.
It's never a small list.
It's never a small list.
That doesn't make sense.
It's also not going to be a complete list. So you're going to want to still read the release notes, and even if you don't want to read the entirety of the release notes, I totally understand. There is one section you should absolutely read.
And what section is that?
That is how and when do features become available. And the reason why we point this out is because it will list kind of like the topics of every feature being released and whether or not it's enabled for users, enabled for admins and developers, if it requires admin setup, or if you have to contact Salesforce, right? So it is also a really great way to kind of quickly go through and say, oh, that looks interesting. I want to know about that. And then click on the link to go read about it. If you're not going to read the whole release notes, at least read that section.
And if you're not sure if an item is going to cost extra money or not, it's a safe bet that if it's in that column, what's that name of that last column again, Brian?
Contact Salesforce to enable.
That it's possible, right? If it's not in that column, it probably doesn't cost extra.
Or if it's part of the section for like high velocity sales or
right, established
Einstein analytics, things like that are product clouds, to say a term that probably isn't correct, then yeah, those features require you to purchase that product to get them.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
should we start with the big one?
Let's kick it off.
Lightning
being
turned on for everyone. Time to panic. No, it's not time to panic.
Don't panic.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you want to do a good Lightning transition, but all it is that the Lightning experience will be enabled in your org. It doesn't mean your users have to use it unless they're on a standard user profile.
Like
system admins, professional
That's
editions, folks that aren't using their 2 custom profiles.
Yep.
Anyone else that didn't,
I think, is one.
Standard user.
Yeah.
So unless you are an enterprise higher edition and did not turn everyone over to a custom permission, with the exception of maybe your system admins, then you're not going to get impacted that hugely. You may want to go through and have a new profile created for system admins who are not actual system admins. You know, those handful of users that feel that they need to have access to everything, but they don't really need full system admin access. Those people,
like your CEO.
Yeah, those people you may want to move over to a custom profile that does the same thing, but then you can control whether or not they get Lightning.
And they still have the ability to go back to Classic.
Absolutely.
That
you can
still
go back.
exists, but it's just turned on for everyone. And once it's on
for good.
No turning it off. Yes, exactly.
It's going to be on permanently. And new users who are going to be created after Lightning is turned on, Lightning is going to be their default UI. So if they log in, they'll see Lightning.
First time they log in, yeah.
Right.
Does that apply for new users who are on a custom profile?
I think that will apply for new users on where Lightning is enabled and they have the permission. So if they don't have the permission on the profile to be a Lightning experience user, they should see Lightning.
Because your custom profiles, nobody is going in and checking the Enable Lightning checkbox for those custom profiles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for the standard profiles. So those, if you don't have Lightning on, they're still going to be in the clear.
But, there's some good news.
Mm-hmm.
There are more tools that Salesforce have been putting out to make the transition easier. For example, there's a place for actions and buttons to move them from Classic to Lightning actions.
Thank God. That's going to be very, very handy because, frankly, some people have a lot of them. Are there any restrictions on that? Like certain buttons that will or will not work?
I don't know that. I mean, it's kind of, it doesn't really say, hey, it will work for this and not those. But it does look for standard, custom, and global actions as well as the buttons on Salesforce Classic to move them to Lightning Experience. It might be something as simple as it moves them from the Classic bar to the Lightning Experience bar. It's not really clear on exactly what this does.
Right.
But it does say it's a standalone converter that lives outside of Salesforce and to use it in a sandbox or developer org first.
Right, the configuration converter, and you get to it by going to, this is the URL, lightning-configuration.salesforce.com. You don't do it from within your own Salesforce org. You go to that URL, you log in with your sandbox or credentials first, of course, and then it basically gives you all the different options and things you can do. I believe this is probably going to, my guess would be, I have not actually tried this yet, but my guess would be that this is going to be relatively full featured. One, it's GA. Two, I've seen things in the past that they had piloted and baited for even turning like JavaScript buttons into actions that are Lightning compatible. So hopefully it should run the gamut.
Yeah, we'll find out. If you want to be really paranoid, I would recommend using like an incognito or private browser when you go to that URL, just in case you have an active Salesforce session. You don't want to accidentally log in to a Salesforce org that you don't actually want to test this with.
Yep. And there's a new beta function also in the configuration converter that will actually scan through your org for any hard-coded URLs that you have in there, and will automatically convert them to my domain, because Lightning does require my domain, so you're going to have that on.
It doesn't actually require. You can have Lightning Experience without having my domain on,
Can
but
you?
a lot of things won't work. Like you can't have Lightning custom components without my domain on,
which are kind of a big deal.
Which is kind of a big deal.
Practically any AppExchange app that supports Lightning, you're going to have that. And
right. And my domain does make things so much easier when dealing with like having your instance changed, or if you're logging into more than one org, you can have an actual URL that's different than everyone else. Yeah.
So definitely take advantage of that. It is beta, but it should still be useful.
Mm-hmm. Mark, do you like saving the planet?
Well, yes, Brian.
You know what's a great way to save the planet? Recycling. And now you can access the recycling bin in Lightning Experience.
That was a terrible transition, but I approve still nonetheless.
Should we trash it?
Yeah, trash that transition.
Trash the transition. Not much to say. Recycle bin. It's accessible.
Exactly. Yay! Well, that's the thing is, that's a big deal.
Oh yeah. Especially with like
for how long?
That 15-day limit when things are sitting in the recycle bin before they're gone completely.
Exactly.
If you can't easily look at it, you don't realize what's in there until it's too late.
I know I don't.
So, search we're not going to get into because we talked all about this with Alexander Level.
Yep. Go listen. Oh, you got the name right.
I got the name right. I've been practicing.
Go listen to the episode with Alexander Level, and he'll tell you all the stuff that's coming in search in Winter 20. Needless to say, there is a lot, and it is awesome.
Yes. The big thing that Salesforce has been trying to get the word out is about the new mobile app, and we're not going to go into deep dive here because it's a lot. If you're going to read one section of the release notes other than the feature thing that I mentioned at the beginning, this would be a good one, especially if you have users on mobile. Because the first thing is there's a new mobile app, and it'll be available the week of October 14th.
And this is, when we say there's a new mobile app, this is not just like, oh yeah, they're releasing a new version and it's got, a few new features in it. Nay. This is a complete UI redo. Everything is different places. Everything looks different. If you are going to do anything, assuming you have mobile users in your org, if you are going to do anything to actually present to your users about, hey, here's changes in the upcoming release that you should be aware of, like this is the one thing you probably want to send them information about, because it is a huge change. Actions are in different places. Buttons are in different places.
Pages can look completely different.
Exactly. And that's going along with some other items we'll continue to talk about here.
Right. So one of the big things is you do have to enable it, and it requires you to have Lightning enabled. It doesn't mean your desktop folks or people on laptops have to use Lightning. They can still use Classic. But to get the new mobile app, you got to enable it in the org and have Lightning enabled in your org.
Which is going to happen anyway, right? Lightning is going to enable
the Lightning enablement will, it's a rolling enablement. So depending on when they're looking, it may already be turned on, but you still have to enable it in the org. The nice thing is there's going to be a mobile app quick start to help you do that, enable it, and learn more, because it is a fairly in-depth change. They're even giving you the Salesforce optimizer for mobile Lightning pages so you can try to prepare.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing we got to come back to here in a sec.
And then there's more, right? I mean, beyond that, you still have to assign users a permission so they can even access and use that app. And I think that's the Salesforce mobile app user permission.
So that's much more complicated, but it's going to be worth it. Also, it should be when is the release, Brian?
Well, it depends on what instance you are on, Mark.
Sure.
It's mid-October for most folks. I know I got the notice that it's coming out like soon, but I'm not on a.
Yeah, sorry, I should have.
Yeah, why are you asking me questions without knowing the answer? I have October 12th for NA 130, so I'm going to guess October 12th is probably when the majority of orgs are going to go.
Okay, and the reason I asked that is because it actually says, in kind of tiny print in the release notes, so I wanted to point it out here, most features become available for the current and new Salesforce mobile apps the week of October 14th. So you might get your release on the 12th, but not actually see some of these features actually enabled in the mobile app for a few days.
Or even be able to get the mobile app. I know my org is going to be winter come September 20th, but that means I won't be able to use the mobile stuff, or at least the mobile app, until October 14th.
Exactly. So yeah, lot to look into there. There's a whole page worth of stuff that's new in the new Salesforce app, so pay attention. Speaking of mobile...
Yeah, what about mobile, Mark?
Quite a few things in Lightning Pages that are going to be different now, that are going to have additional mobile functionality.
Are you talking about being able to decide what component shows up based on the device?
For starters, Brian. Yeah, so exactly that. If there is a component on your Lightning page that you want to be visible only on mobile or not visible on mobile, that is now a thing. You can actually specify individual components visibility by device. Not only that, now you can have entire Lightning pages that you can specify this page or Lightning app. Is it an app or a page?
It says app.
It says app. I should follow I think it means pages though. Isn't that the same thing?
Well, no, because you can have an app which is a collection of tabs. So you can have an app that's accessible
But
only
it's not
on
a
desktop.
Lightning
A
Lightning app is...
No, a Lightning app is the same thing of what they call app. It's just a Lightning enabled app.
Okay.
An app is an app. In Classic and Lightning, it's just one is accessible.
That's right. We had pages in the last release, didn't we?
Yes.
All right, let me rewind. Not only the components, but you can actually make entire apps now that are accessible by device. So you can say this whole app is on mobile only or desktop only or both.
Right. And you can actually go in and play around with that now once you're on winter release, but you won't be able to see what it looks like on the actual mobile until the mobile app is released October 14th.
Yep. One last thing that is being added to the whole Lightning page builder thing, tabs and accordions, you can now add those to your Lightning home pages. So,
do they come with a monkey to play the accordion?
That is not the type of accordion, Brian. And if you didn't know that already, I can't help you.
Weird Al?
Weird Brian.
I would pay to have Weird Al on the accordion in my app.
Indeed. Well, you could probably embed a video in there if you really wanted to.
I'm going to try that, actually.
Right. Put it in an accordion section.
I got two huge ones. Something that's been asked about for
oh my God.
decades.
I'm so happy.
Right?
So excited. Yes.
And that's customizing opportunity contact. And that includes custom fields, buttons, links, page layouts, and triggers and validation rules. You can finally trigger off of when an opportunity contact gets created or edited or deleted.
And that also now, because it has triggers, also includes process builders, workflow. Woo-hoo. And it's not just opportunity contact roles.
It's not.
It's account teams too.
Which is actually really good too.
I'm so happy. Why couldn't they have this when I was a customer and a partner? Huh.
I know.
Okay.
You have no idea how many times I've created hacks to try to do opportunity contact roll-ups and account team runs. Oh, God, it's awful.
The hacks.
The terror has finally ended.
Those days are gone and past. They're class 1 objects at last. And poor old opportunity teams gets left out in the cold. Sorry, opportunity teams. All right, what else? What else do we got? Oh. Yeah. This is a kind of a small one, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Signatures. Your default signature that you have set up on your user settings in Salesforce, you can now have that by default added to email templates.
Yay.
It saves your people time and effort. Like you as an admin,
and it was there in Classic, so
yeah, exactly. But your users will freaking love it. If there's anybody emailing out of Salesforce, they're gonna love having this back in.
This is kind of quality of life. It's quote lines and opportunity products.
Yep.
They can now be sorted.
Okay. Could you not do that before?
No.
Oh. Well, yeah.
I mean, you can sort them in any order they want. I mean, the screenshot they showed you is basically a way to drag and drop them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So for quotes, is it also in, I guess it would impact the PDF as well, wouldn't it?
I would assume so. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the reason why they do it, because they want to have products show up in a certain order. Yeah. But there's a limit. You can only do it for up to 200 lines.
Oh, noes.
Although if you have 200 lines, I feel really bad for your salespeople trying to build that quote.
I feel bad for your customers, okay? If you have a quote with 200 lines in it, that's bad for your customer. Stop it. Figure out another way of doing this.
So more quality LA stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember, you remember Justice?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he had this error. Justice Akane. Oh my gosh, I just butchered the name. Sikakane. I'm so sorry, Justice. Justice Sikakane had this issue where he was trying to figure out, hey, there's a task on this page, but it's not there in the timeline. Well, it's because the task was archived.
Wow.
Right? In Lightning, you can't see archived tasks.
Nope.
But now, up to 2,000 activities, including archived activities, will be visible in the activity timeline and the activity history related list.
So is that up to 2,000 activities on the record or 2,000 activities across the entire org?
I'm pretty sure it's by the record.
Okay, that would make sense. 2,000 activities wouldn't go very far.
Yeah, I mean, because it said the timeline and the history list, I'm pretty sure it means the record. Though it does not explicitly say it's record or org, I'm pretty sure they mean per record.
Speaking of data and keeping it visible or private, there is now some increased functionality, some improved functionality, added functionality for things like GDPR. Every field in Salesforce, every single one is going to have a new piece of metadata. It's going to have a field attached to the field where you can actually set its data classification. So you can say whether it is something that needs to be or whether it's categorized as personally identifiable information, whether it's personal health information, you can set those values. So this will allow you to actually keep track of things that need to be kept track of for GDPR purposes.
Is it available in reports, Mark?
I was about to get to that, Brian. This information will also be available in reports as well, should you need it.
Price book entries. They're going to be able to support field history tracking and audit trails. So if you are using products, price books, and price book entries, and you have a tendency to change those price book entries, you can see the field history tracking as well as have it seen in the audit trail before it was just invisible.
Or maybe if you have one of those users who you've had to give too much access because they think they need it, and then
we
they
never
go
do
start
that.
Messing with price book entries. Well, now you'll have a record that they did that. So there you go.
Or you work with an ISV who, pushes over their own price book entries, even though you said you don't do that, and they accidentally do it anyways.
Yeah.
And you have to spend your weekend restoring based on a sandbox. It's so tragic.
It's okay, Brian. It's okay. Maybe talking about paths will help you feel better.
What about path, Mark?
This one was yours.
So path, you're going to be able to remove unused paths from managed packages that you installed it. And here's a kind of weird thing about it.
You have to be more specific about that.
Yeah, so if you install a package from the AppExchange, an app from the AppExchange that's managed, normally you can't really change a lot in there because...
As an admin who installs it.
As an admin, right. So in your org, it's a managed package. You can't do that. And so if you're not going to use the path, it was still counting against you in the indexes and the quotas. So now you can remove the path if you're not using it. The only trick is the name for that path still stays in your org. So you can't reuse the name of that path for one of your own, but at least you can remove it from any indexes, any future updates that the package may provide, and it won't hit your limit on how many paths you can have.
Yeah, and I'm guessing this isn't actually removing it because it's a managed package. You cannot, as a user who is installing a managed package, you cannot actually change the contents of it. What it's probably doing in the background is just marking it so that it's removed from your view and it doesn't count against your quotas and things like that. So,
which is why you can't reuse the name.
Exactly. The names are always going to stay the same. You're never going to be able to affect that with anything from a managed package.
Should we give people another warning about customizable forecast?
I mean, Salesforce keeps giving them warnings, so I don't see why we shouldn't.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard this, customizable forecast is going away.
Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Customizable?
Look, it's customizable. The way I pronounce it doesn't matter because it's going to go away, Mark.
You're customizing how you say it.
Yeah. Customizable forecast is going to go away as of summer 20, which is estimated to be June 2020. The big deal about this isn't just that the feature's gone, but the data itself won't be accessible. So if you need to have that data for historical purposes, you need to export that data so you have it, and then you should move your team to collaborative forecast as soon as possible if you want to continue using forecasting within Salesforce.
This one was a big deal, and I believe it used to be a black tab setting. In other words, you could contact Salesforce support, and they could enable it in the background on your org, but this wasn't something you could do yourself. And now you can, and there is a setting called, this is literally the name of the setting, when users add a product to an opportunity, insert a quantity of 1. That's the name of the setting.
Really?
It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Is that a global thing? Is it for every product or a specific product?
Every product. Now, when you go and add it, the opportunity product to the opportunity, it just is going to default the quantity to 1.
So that makes a lot of sense for folks who are always going to have 1 in the product. But if you had variable numbers in there, you may want to think whether or not you want to turn that on because...
Well, and that's the thing is it's going to mix and match. Even if you sometimes have a value of 1, it may still be good to turn on. Your salespeople just got to be a little bit like on the ball.
It's a business choice.
Use their quantity when it's going to be a difference.
It's a business choice.
Yeah.
One thing I think is good is, speaking of with opportunity products, that multi-line edit, dependent pick lists will actually work now. So it used to be that if you had 2 pick lists, one that's dependent upon each other, you could put them in the multi-line edit, but they would be read-only. You couldn't actually change them. Now you'd be able to actually edit them.
That's odd, and I'm glad that they fixed that. That's not something you would think would be the case.
No.
But there it is. Speaking of more Lightning feature parity, God, there's a lot of Lightning feature parity in this. There always is. Account sharing. Or not, is it? Well, hang on. Is it?
Well, it's being able to see. It's just accounts. It's being able to see who has visibility to the account. So you remember the sharing button that was on the account that lets you say who can see that particular account and why?
The access button.
Yeah, that access button. It's going to be there as team member access for accounts.
Okay, so this isn't actually the sharing button, which allowed you to set record level sharing rules. This is more of a view all of the people who have access to this account kind of button.
Right.
I guess through account teams, opportunity teams, things like that. Another thing that is now coming up to Lightning is topics. Topics are now on Lightning, and maybe they're actually useful now. Not only can you set topics on individual records, but the topics themselves now have their own dedicated record page. So if you have a topic that was used on, let's say, 5 accounts and 20 cases and 25 tasks, you can actually go to the topic page and see a list of all of those records across all of those objects that have that topic. So that's actually pretty cool.
Interesting.
You could actually also use topics in list views as well as a filter.
Oh, that potentially is pretty cool.
Yep. So you could have like specific cases that are tagged as like outage October 2019, and then
how topical.
I know, right? Make a list view that actually filters on that topic. So, like I said, topics may be actually useful now. I mean, it was always something that seemed to have a lot of potential that never really got tapped. This seems to me like they're actually knocking in the spigot.
One thing I always found challenging from an adoption, and this is not Lightning adoption specifically, but adoption in general, is making sure that users, when they go into Salesforce, are using the right app. So because there are times where you need to have more than one app, and you can set the default, but that doesn't mean when the user goes in there that that's necessarily what they're going to get. So in Winter, you can actually have a URL that is app specific. So you would go open the app, you can grab the URL and then add the context. So the example they give you is something like /lightning/app/ the name of the app /o/case/home, which is a mouthful, but it means you can share that URL with users and have them go there as a way to enter into Salesforce to make sure that they get to the right app that you want them to use.
Very useful stuff, particularly when you're training or setting people up on a new app for some reason. This is going to be an interesting one. I actually have a little bit of mixed feelings about this.
Oh?
I think it's really good, but it might cause issues. So there's going to be this new type of security notice that's getting added to Salesforce. And it's basically going to appear to admins. It's going to be a yellow orangish bar up at the top of the page that basically tells you that there is a security update for your org. And so that's good because it's basically...
What does that mean? Security update, like a critical update?
It doesn't actually specify here in the release notes what that is exactly.
And where does that show? Is it on any page or is it just the setup page?
I believe that is for admins. It's going to be persistent message at the top of the org on all pages.
Oh, wow.
So this is where it gets interesting because that's great. Great. There's security things. We need to make the admins aware of them so they can go take care of them. Wonderful. Absolutely. However, what happens when an admin sees this? They're very likely to say, oh, there's a thing I need to go do. And then they just go do it, right? They may not actually, well, yeah, I'm talking about, obviously there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to do that, but it's very possible that an admin may just see this and say, oh, this is something I need to go do. And they just go flip the switch without putting in the thought, the research, the work that needs to happen before these updates happen. So because it's the persistent glowing bar at the top of the page, it might freak people out. So I don't know. I have some mixed feelings. I think surfacing it is good. It would be great if it did more than just surfacing it, but we'll see what happens.
It's kind of annoying that's persistent too, because like if you go and there's not something you can do right now because maybe your org won't support that at this time, it just means you get this annoying message at the top of your screen forever.
Yeah. And once you actually go to the link that is in this yellow bar up at the top, it does actually list all of the security updates, and it tells you whether they are required, recommended, or just for informational purposes.
Do you know what they're considering a security update?
I don't know what that means exactly.
Interesting. I mean, that seems kind of a broad statement.
I mean, security is important. Trust is important. I absolutely get 100% why they do it. And I think they're not specifying what a security update is for that very reason. They want it to be broad so they could possibly include anything that may need to be included as part of this. So,
it would still be nice to be able to have a way to say, yes, I've looked at this to miss the message for that set of security updates, I guess. Well, there's some other limits not other limits.
Break all the limits.
Yeah, there are new limits being raised, two of them. One of them being the approval process limits. So now you can have up to 1,000 active and 2,000 total approval processes.
Who needs 1,000
with
active?
each object can have up to 300 active and a total of 500 total approved processes. That's a lot of approval processes.
Who needs this many?
I would imagine really large orgs that are very diversified. I can see like financial services potentially, but yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I would say probably the majority of people listening to this will never really have that issue.
No, probably not.
Probably not. Custom objects, that limit's getting raised up to 3,000. So it's up from 2,500.
Plus 500.
Yeah, plus 500. And I think a lot of this has to do with supporting the ability to install more packages from the AppExchange.
And typically those limits haven't included. Is this a limit that did include AppExchange things?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the custom...
Okay. Okay. Because there have been limits they've published before that did not include installations like that. So yes, this one doesn't count. There has been a button that has been beta in your object manager for quite some time. It's called Where Is This Used? And it's now GA.
Woohoo!
So this will find validation rules, layouts, formula fields, Visualforce pages, Apex classes, Apex triggers, email templates, but only the classic ones, field sets, flows, lightning components, process builders, URL buttons, lightning pages, lookup filters, reports, all those things. It will go and find where that field was used.
I mean, there's some exceptions, like with flows, it's only when you're getting data, the queries, and reports when it's in a column.
Gotcha.
Right? So, like, if you have it in a report formula, I don't think it's going to count.
What about a report filter?
I don't think it counts it.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, the release notes is explicitly listed as a column.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, it says, for a report to show up in the list, the field must be used as a column in the report, references to a report filter, grouping, or custom summary formula do not appear.
Blah.
So better, not great.
Well, yeah, no. Anyway, and I say that because I have actually run these kinds of scans before, and it can be very valuable to find that out, because that kind of why would you use this button? Because you're going to change something.
Right.
When you go and change something, then you need to see all the things that are looking at it, including reports you're filtering data off of. Those are often critical pivot points. So
right. I mean, there's a potential in our situation right now where we're about to replace like 10 different fields, create whole new fields to replace them, and it would be really nice for an adoption purpose and an easy use purpose to know where those old fields were used so we can replace them with the new fields.
I was about to make a joke that you were actually making all these changes in our org because you are changing the podcast. And I feel like at this point it's a bit late, but I should point out that we are not actually changing the podcast name. We didn't specify that, Brian. We didn't say we're not doing this. It was
the
totally
day that our listeners take our riffing in this plot line at the start of our episode seriously is the day where something has terribly gone wrong. We've been doing this for almost 2 years now. I don't think anyone takes that seriously.
I'm just making sure. Just make sure that's stated for everybody. All right. What about the AppExchange, Brian?
Well, one of the things that always bugged me is you go grab these apps, maybe because, a manager or user wanted it, and then you have no idea, are people actually using them? And if they're not, they're just kind of cluttering up your org. Well, now there's going to be this usage summary, so you can see how your org is using those AppExchange packages.
That's cool. That's great. What does it show exactly?
Well, it gives you this app analytics query or request, so you can actually request the summary. And it basically just shows you, it gives you an let me try that again. It gives you a CSV file of the managed package usage data. They don't really define what quote unquote usage data is.
Right.
I'm going to assume it's things like how many times people are accessing bits and pieces of that. Unfortunately, there's no example or screenshot in this particular part of the release notes, so I'm curious to see what it's going to look like.
Either way, it should be valuable information.
Yeah. And it's only for managed packages.
Oh, okay.
And it's English first. It says managed packages that have passed security review. But
yeah. Well, yeah. I don't think you can have a managed package on the AppExchange if it hasn't passed security review.
She asked the cool one. You want to do this one? The one that's really kind of neat but troublesome.
Yeah, this is good. So there's a setting you can now enable. You do so under company information, and what it does is it sets your DateValue functions in your formulas to respect daylight savings time, which is great. That's absolutely wonderful. But there is a caveat. This is not something you just want to turn on automatically, because it will increase. Well, sorry, it probably will increase the compiled size of your existing formulas that are using the DateValue function.
And it doesn't explicitly say that if you turn this on and it goes over the compile size that the formula will break, but I'm guessing it's going to break.
So this is something you gotta have to run ahead of time. You're gonna have to go through all your formulas
in a sandbox.
Find all the ones that have DateValue, and then flip the switch, enable a setting, and then go through and edit save all of them and make sure they still save.
Right.
Because frankly, I have seen date formulas that would die because of this. Easily. And so, because they come really close, like they're at that 4,560 something mark, right? Like really close to the 5,000 mark.
The thing that makes me wonder is, since the DateValue function is changing in formula fields, is it going to change other places that you can reference that function? Like, we can have these functions available as a formula in Flow.
Does the 5,000 limit affect Flow formulas?
I've never ran into it, but I don't honestly know.
No, I don't know either. So, yeah, some big question marks there.
Well, I'm more interested, would it work? I'm assuming that it would work the same.
Yeah, no, it should. The formula engine should.
It doesn't say that it does.
No, I know.
But yeah, since it's a function, you would hope it would work the same anywhere it's used.
Yeah, in Process Builder and in Flow. Yeah, I mean, those are.
But I would test them all.
Yeah.
Make sure.
Got to test them all.
All right. On to
Flow. It's our favorite part of the release notes.
And 35% of our release notes.
This is actually, there's a lot of good stuff here, Brian.
Oh, there's a ton.
What's first on the list, Brian? Does it begin with L?
It's adding Lightning Web components to flow screens. We could add Lightning components, but Lightning components are so passé. It's so 2018.
Okay.
Okay. So Lightning Web Components is the newest, greatest. It's the thing that everyone's saying you need to move to, and you can now add them to your flow screens.
All right. Well, it's not what I was hoping for, but that's still pretty cool.
I'm more excited for the next one, Mark.
Why? What's the next one? Does it begin with
scheduling auto launch flows?
Oh, okay. All right. Fine. All right. This one is good, actually. This is the ability to have a flow and say that this flow is going to run on this date at this time, or you can say every Monday at this time, or you can say run every 4 hours, or you could say it. Basically, if you're familiar with the concept of a cron job, it's basically being able to set a flow with that, or like a scheduled Apex job. So this is really, really good, because now you'll be able to say, just run this flow to process your data every day at like midnight, and it will do it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge.
You still have to be wary of your 2,000 element limits and things like that. Sure. So, but yeah, there's some pretty intense stuff here. I've actually made a flow once before that was specifically designed to run up against that 2,000 element limit and then would stop itself. And I had a scheduled thing that made it run like every half hour. So it would, even though it was going to hit that 2,000 limit, it basically ran the first 2,000, then ran the next 2,000 like half an hour later, then ran the next 2,000 half hour later until it was done. So you could do that. You could absolutely do that here.
You know, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier when we were prepping for this, that I'm very mixed on. And that is the ability to do things like get record elements without specifying the variable to store the return.
This saves time. It saves effort. Sure. It saves steps.
Yes.
I get what your concern is. So Brian's concern. Well, go ahead, Brian.
Well, so the way this works is there's an option. So when you're putting in, let's say, a get records, you can go through and have Flow create the variable for you.
When you're getting multiple records.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's one record or multiple records, right?
Gotcha.
But it's based off of the naming convention it uses is based off of the object and the name of the element, which makes sense from an automatic standpoint. But
give us an example.
So the example that they used is, hey, I have an element out there called get EMEA accounts. So the record collection variable becomes accounts from get EMEA accounts. Logically, it makes sense, but think how long that is.
Right.
I'm worried about how is that going to show up? How easily is it going to be to quickly read and figure out that was the accounts? I mean, if you have tons of different accounts gets, that could get kind of cluttered, which is why I was always very particular in what I use for my naming convention. That being said, it's not a requirement. There is an option for you to either use this feature or not use this feature.
Yeah, and frankly, the screenshot they give, it doesn't run out of space. It doesn't clip off the edge. So maybe they handled it well. This is going to be one of those things we're going to have to see it in action and find out whether or not it is kind of cutting off the text so we don't see what's there, or whether they've handled it well. We just don't know. All right, this next one, it begins with L. It's my favorite. I've been wanting this for years. If you've seen me speak about flow at any sort of convention, you've heard me go on about this.
Yes, look, grid lines. Oh, no.
It's not grid lines, but that would also be awesome. Don't mess with me. We're getting the next best thing, lookup components.
Ooh.
Yay! We actually have lookup components, true lookup components.
Which I believe is a Lightning component.
Well, it is. So it's a lookup field that is a Lightning component that you add to your screen. But you don't, when you say Lightning component, don't be afraid. It comes with Salesforce. It comes with your installation. Yep. It's just something you can add to your screen, just like anything else. Oh my God.
But I would imagine these would also require you to have my domain on and have it use Lightning runtime, which means if you're in Classic, you have to enable that feature to have it available when the flow is run by a URL.
Right. I mean, if you're a heavy flow user and you're up on like cutting edge flow stuff, you practically have to be using Lightning by this point. What else do we got, Brian? I'm spent. I'm done. That's it.
Well, fine. Let's talk about more screen stuff. How about conditional visibility within the screen?
Okay. Nope. That's really good. You have my attention again.
Right. To be able to do things like to say, hey, I'm going to add these items to my flow screen, but then I'm going to say that I only want to show them based on some sort of condition.
Right. So you could say only show this text if there are no records found, or things like that, without having to do like ifs, or just rather without having to do decisions to show different screens. It's like the exact same screen, except one thing is different because you had a different scenario.
What's not clear from this is if it's component visibility that is defined at this time the screen loads. So if you had a field above it and a user selects a value and your visibility is based on what they selected, I don't think it's automatically updating the page itself. I think it is based on a previously selected resource or screen value.
Right. Yeah, I don't think this is dynamically, like, without reloading.
Right. But this is still better because if you think the only way we could do this right now...
No, actually, the example they show is a checkbox that says ship to a different address. And then because of that, the address fields appear.
Then that's awesome.
That's the example they have in the release notes. So unless it's on a different screen, which wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, it's. I guess when I read the text, it doesn't make it clear, but the images certainly do imply that.
Yeah. So again, it might be something we have to test for ourselves.
Even if it wasn't, required two different screens, it's still better because right now you would have to put a decision element in to decide which custom screen you're going to show with or without the additional fields.
This is so much nicer.
Still nicer, yeah.
So let's cross the streams a little bit. We're talking about flow. We were talking about mobile earlier. And now the two shall meet. And where they meet, we have custom notifications. You can actually have a flow send a notification to a user.
Which is something we could have done in Process Builder.
Yeah, but now you could do it in Flow. So you don't have to actually go through Process Builder.
And I believe this uses the custom notification option, which means it's not just mobile. I believe it also gives you that little icon in the bell.
It's true. That is absolutely true.
But yeah, think of that as an alternative to email alerts.
Exactly. Anything you can do to reduce email.
Anything.
Please. Yes.
Rich text.
Rich text is now in text templates.
Finally.
Yay!
Which I'm happy about, but this now means I have to redo the episode I literally just recorded and published about text templates.
Well, you don't have to do it until October 12th when the release comes out.
There we go. I got time.
You have time. Put it off.
Yes.
Drag selection.
Shannon, I'm so happy this changed. People who know me probably heard me whining and complaining that I had to hit the space bar, click the button to switch between selection and panning. Well, that's no longer an issue. And now you can drag to select multiple elements as well.
Yay! Which is pretty awesome. I'm very happy to have that. Well, again, it's feature parity, but it's very good to have. Also, you can now have longer element labels as well, because it will show two lines on the element labels, not just the one.
Here's one that I always loved, right? Mm-hmm. Having to go back to activate the flow that you just saved.
So, I mean, and that's particularly annoying when you just turn something on and you're just trying to test it, right? This is your version 0.1 of your flow, and you're just kicking it out and see what happens. Now you don't have to do that. Now you don't have to leave the flow to go activate it.
I always use the debug for that. Save the version, hit the debug, run as
so that's
most
a
recent
little bit
version.
Trickier these days because when you don't have a screen, when you're running an auto-launch flow, this may not be relevant, but when you're running an auto-launch flow, you don't have a screen to be able to run your own debugs and get your own debug values repeated.
But that doesn't matter because you get the log on the right-hand side of what's happening.
Show everything. It doesn't. If you're trying to figure out what your formulas are calculating in the background as you go, like it's not going to show that. You have to use a screen or something to display those values.
Fair enough.
So that was a pain in the butt.
Mark, I have a sad thing.
What?
Flows that are built from the desktop flow designer will no longer run.
When
was the last time you built a flow in the desktop flow designer?
Oh, God. 9 years ago? 8 years ago? Something like that.
Something crazy? Yeah. I don't think this is going to impact too many people.
I mean, it might impact my old org where I built all this stuff. They still have it running. I don't know. Yeah. Oops. Sorry. Hope your admins are paid well.
Alert the right people when a flow error event occurs.
Events. So this is part of platform events, event management, right? So you can actually have a flow error event. So in other words, whenever a flow error occurs, it goes onto the to the event feed, and Process Builder can now subscribe to that feed. So you can actually say, you can set up a process that's designed to say, when a flow error occurs, do this. So go make a case, go make a notification, custom notification.
Post the chatter.
Post a chatter, yeah. Go send an email if you really want. I don't care. But this might give you a bit more control over your flow errors. You can probably even say, I don't know this for certain, I would guess you'd be able to specify, by flow as well. So you could say, do different things with it based on the error, what flow it's erroring from. So
what I want to know is, like, if I set my resources to be output accessible and the flow errors out, if Process Builder can grab the values of those resources to put into a node. I would imagine not.
I would imagine not. Yeah, but that's interesting.
That would be really cool, because when I think about this, right now you get that flow error email, which is pretty decent. But I'm not sure when you do this, what other information you're going to have access to that is not in the email you already get.
Yep, just don't know yet. List views. We talked a little bit about them, but flows now have their own dedicated list views. So this means you can actually say, go make a new flow list view in Lightning. Because I think you might have been able to do this in Classic.
Kind of.
Really. You could actually set up a list view that actually has like different types of flows, like show active flows, show inactive flows, things like that. So we get a lot more control over this now with different filtering and things like that. Yep. Really great.
And speaking of control, there's going to be new permissions so you can run individual flows.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nuance to this one we need to talk about.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So everybody has probably seen, if you're into flows at all, you've probably seen that there is a profile permission called run flows, right? And I think
isn't that on the user?
There's both.
Is it flow user?
There's both. There's flow user, and then there's run flows on the profile.
Okay.
If your user or your profile has that, none of what we're about to say matters. Okay? They still have access to every flow just as they did before. But if you have a user that does not have access, that does not have flow user, if you have a profile that does not have run flows, you will now be able to set individual flows to have permission to be accessed by a profile or by a permission set. So you could say this profile can run this one flow, and then, but you don't have to give them access to every flow.
Which I think from a security standpoint is pretty nice.
Oh, yeah.
Although I'd be really curious to see, like, if I had a Lightning action that launches the flow, and I'm the user that doesn't have permission to run that flow, will I still see the action or not? My guess is yes.
Well, but actions don't always render.
Right, but I'm going to guess yes, and then I will get, like, an insufficient privilege error or something like that.
Probably. Actions are the only reason I'm hesitating is because it's an action. Right. I have seen very specific cases where actions don't render. Like, for example, if the action creates a record of a specific record type, and the profile doesn't have permission to create a record with that record type, the action button doesn't even render.
Right. Or what about Lightning flow component that automatically runs, and you don't change the component visibility to exclude people who don't have that permission? What happens when the page loads, if anything?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the one thing that is missing from the release notes. It doesn't tell you what happens if a user tries to access a flow, and if the flow is even accessible, through buttons, actions, page layout, whatever.
Right. Well, we'll find out, won't we?
We'll find out.
And then our last flow item of the day. So a few releases ago, they did this thing called
Deploy Active Flow.
Deploying Active Flows. Thank you.
in the previous release, if you can deploy a flow as active, but it required you to have some test coverage. So now the flow test coverage requirement is independent from the 75% code coverage requirement from Apex, and you can set your own minimum test coverage percentage for flows in a new process automation setting. So if you go to setup and do process automation settings, there'll be an option to say, what is the minimum test coverage to do this? Which I think is interesting. I wonder if it will say, hey, set this to 0 and then be able to deploy without actually any test coverage. It doesn't say that, but it does only apply if you are deploying these flows as active or deploying processes as active.
So we're kind of nearing the end here. What else do we got, Brian? What we've got something about verification of email addresses?
Yeah, this is something I was really surprised wasn't there. So this is for people who are running a community. If you have a community user and they go in and change their email address, you can start to require them to verify that the email address they're changing to is valid. You know, think of like the traditional, hey, I changed my email address, and so you get an email to that new address to say, please click here to verify, right? To ensure that you have access to the actual email address you put in there. You can enable that for your community, which I think is nice.
That is good. That is good.
The other thing that I think is really interesting is being able to say that for certain users to access parts of setup or objects have to have a high assurance session. So think like two-factor authentication, you know, where you log in and then it pops up a message on your phone saying, hey, do you want to allow access type of thing. So you can set up security level policies to say, hey, for them to do certain types, I need them to have that two-factor authentication or be some otherwise highly assured session.
So in other words, if you wanted them to be able to unlock users and reset passwords, that might require it. Or if you wanted them to manage permission sets and profiles, that would require them.
Or change IP addresses for...
But not running reports and dashboards, but not managing other two-factor authentication. You know, it can change it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really helpful, especially for organizations where the system admin maybe doesn't want or can't handle everything. But you don't want to give away the keys of the kingdom because maybe you're a financial service company and compliance is really high. So this will give you a way to say, okay, I can give other users access to these sensitive operations, but you have to be at this kind of level of security. Like, I'm thinking like managing data exports, right?
Right. So now on to the critical update.
Critical updates!
Critical.
We should totally come up with our own little thing for that.
Okay.
Well, there's a critical update almost every release, right?
Critical.
Critical fatality. Sorry, all I can think of is Mortal Kombat now. So this is something, and I'm not really sure what to think about, but there's something out there called Salesforce Edge.
Are you living on the edge, Brian?
No, because that's not good for my microphone. So this has something to do with people who are using my domains and the Salesforce Edge. And they say Salesforce Edge, and this is a quote, uses machine learning technology to improve connectivity and performance, end quote. And I guess it means that if you have my domain enabled and you're going through Salesforce Edge, things are faster for you?
Yeah, basically.
I mean, it didn't really give any, like, details of, like, how much faster or anything like that, but...
Yeah, but it's reducing latency, and it is improving performance. I from some of the chatter I've seen in, you know, Salesforce employee circles and things like that, when we're going through and doing our testing and things like that, we are noticing, like, yeah, this is much faster in a lot of places. So,
and it doesn't impact what you have for domains or your sites or communities.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of interested about it, why it's being a critical update, simply because of the fact that I'm not sure what the downside would be for this.
Maybe it has something to do with certain types of routing that,
yeah.
You know, maybe
I mean,
security might not be.
It might be security because there is a saying there that says domains will be moved to Salesforce Edge except custom domains for Salesforce government cloud orgs.
Yeah, those are not going to be moved to Salesforce Edge. So that is interesting.
Interesting.
And that could be because there are certain types of government cloud orgs that, and I didn't know this existed until I happened to stumble upon it as a partner doing research for government stuff. There is a service you can get from Salesforce, and it's only in very, very specific cases. Very, very specific cities like Washington, D.C., where you can do a direct connection to Salesforce. Yes. But this is like...
But multi-tenancy, Mark?
Very, very difficult to attain because it has to be certain ISPs. You have to go through this ISP in a specific city where they have this ready and set up to go. It's only for these very specific cases, and it's primarily government. So maybe that's why.
Maybe. But it does say it's going to get auto-activated July 13th, 2020.
Yeah. Like all critical updates, they get auto-activated at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this will. I don't think there's any real security risk for this.
Right. I'm not sure. I'm gonna guess you can turn it off once you enable it. It doesn't say that once you enable the critical update that you can disable it. But that's something I might do in a sandbox.
Yeah, sandbox definitely. Don't assume there.
Yeah. TLS 1.2. It's going to be required now. Do you remember? It seems like we just did 1.1.
Yesterday it was 1.1.
Yeah.
They get so old so fast.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you only updated to 1.1, you got to update to 1.2 now.
Everything you learned from that last one, good. You can use it again.
All right, Mark, you were really excited about this one.
Well, this is interesting. I think this is interesting. So now you'll be able to enable international components for Unicode into various places, specifically this date and times. But I thought I saw something about that it would also be for email addresses. Maybe it's not a critical update. There was another update somewhere in the release notes that talked about this for emails. And what it is essentially the ability to use non-Latin characters in your formatting. So for this critical update, it's basically just allowing you to use these non-Latin characters for dates and times. But there is another thing we didn't talk about where it's theoretically opening up the path to use those for email addresses as well. So you could have like an email address that was basically Chinese characters at Chinese characters dot Chinese characters. So things like that are possible.
Now I kind of want to have an email address that's so generic like that. Get a domain that's just called Chinese characters.
Oh, God. All right. Other critical updates that are more developer-oriented. What do we have, Brian?
So there's a whole bunch. I'm not going to go into them, to be quite honest. Some of these are a little bit above my head. But if you have done a lot of development or you're a developer, you want to check these out. There's the ability to restrict access to @RA enabled Apex methods for guest and Porto users based on their profile, basically giving more control over people who are not regular Salesforce users, but are, community users and so forth. Being able to restrict those same type of methods for authenticated users based on user profiles. So this would be for people who were actually logged in, so regular users. Using with sharing for Aura enabled Apex controllers with implicit sharing. I think I kind of understood that, but I kind of scratched my head with it.
I'm completely lost.
Enforce access modifiers on Apex properties and Lightning component markup.
Yep. Hooray.
I'm just going to leave it at that because I understand what each of those individual words mean, but that's it.
Hooray, access modifiers. I don't know what it means.
And here's one that I think is interesting. Enable partial save for invocable action.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So what is that? Does that mean that if certain amount of data is trying to be processed and only part of it succeeds and you get a failure part way through, that it will do the rest?
Well, I think it's like when you're doing like an external REST API call and it's like in bulk. So we're doing multiple records at once. If one record fails, I think you have the option to say, well, go ahead and successfully process the ones that didn't fail and only throw an error for the ones that did fail versus it being an all or nothing.
That's pretty cool if you're into that sort of thing.
Yes, I guess. It says here that Salesforce will try 3 times to execute the invocable action that runs successfully and roll back only the invocable actions that fail to execute. So there you go.
All right. Is there anything else, Brian, or does that cover it?
It covers everything from here. I mean, we did not go over everything. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff about Outlook and, tons of things. So definitely go through and read the how and when do features become available. Check out the webinars because Salesforce does a pretty decent job at highlighting some of the more marketing friendly features in the release webinars. And there's, of course, the chatter group for release readiness. WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was Oscar Hamilgren.
And you can be an intern too. Just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
Or if you take pictures of us when you were at Salesforce events, make sure you share them out on social media and tag us, and we'll also add you to the list.
Have a joke, interview suggestion, or other comments? Let us know. You can call and leave a voice recording at 608-492-0321 or email wizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
Do you have a question you would love to ask Parker Harris? Well, we want to know what it is, but only if you tell us by September 27th.
That's right. You better submit your question by going to bit.ly/ParkerQuestions and fill out our short form by September 27th. After that, it's too late.
Yeah, we're not going to bother collecting them anymore after that.
Nope.
We will collect ideas that you would like us to highlight in our next Idea Exchange highlight. And this could be ideas that you voted for, ideas you submitted, ideas that you looked at and go, I would like to hear what Mark and Brian think about this. And if we're really lucky, we might get Jennifer Sachs and Scott Allen back here to share a little bit more behind the scenes about those ideas.
So if you want them to talk about it, go to bit.ly/idea highlight and submit the idea to us.
That voice. Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically.
And please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you just had to endure.
Once again, I'm Brian.
And I wish I could have this voice all the time. This is awesome. Sunday. Yeah. You'll come for the podcast, but you'll only need the edge of your seat.
Thanks for listening to the Lightning Einstein Trailhead Admin Podcast.
No, it's a bad Brian. Bad Brian. I'm just now looking at the script, realizing that the name WizardCast is a pun.
Yeah? It's been 4 years, Mark, and you haven't realized?
No.
It's a pun?
It didn't, episode 99, I figured it out. Okay.
I mean, do you get it? Podcast,
I get
cast,
it. Yeah.
casting a spell.
Yeah. Okay.